Good morning. My name is Latika Pai, and I'm the country head for Microsoft India for the Venture Capital and Private Equity Investments Partnership. I am here today as the co chair for the first ever Sri Lanka Internet Day. It is my pleasure to have a discussion with two key policy makers for Sri Lanka, Mr. Jayanta De Silva, Secretary to the Ministry of Technology, and Mr. Lalit Gamage, Chairman of ICTA. Today, Sri Lanka stands at a very critical junction in terms of taking the country digital. And it's important for all of us to understand what are the different policies that are being put in place. Jayanta, how is the newly formed technology ministry structured to drive the digital strategy for the country?
Morning, all of you. The Technology Ministry was formed just 3 months ago, and we were given a sort of new and large mandate under the President, who is also the Minister of Technology. Now, the Technology Ministry is not only IT or ICT, anything to do with technology, technically, is under the ministry. So ICT, of course, is going to be the key for most of these technology, other technology-related organizations, where ICTA is going to be the main organization going horizontally in assisting and deciding the IT, ICT, and technology policies to a great extent. So we have given a lot of emphasis on this. And we know the only way that a third world country like ours to go to first level or level 1 or whatever you call it is technology. And we are in the right area, we are in the right geographical area. So we feel that technology is going to be have a major effect on our development and on the future of this country. Of course, ICT or IT is going to be one of the key areas in this ministry. So we are hoping, we have planned a lot of activities around us. Technology diffusion is one of the key areas that ICT has taken over. Hopefully, within 2 years, we'll have some of the major projects going live, and helping our citizens as well as our country.
Thank you, Jayanta. Lalit, Jayanta just messaged that ICTA is the one who's going to be driving the digital strategy for the country. How is the ICTA structured, and what are some of the plans that you have in terms of driving this?
Thank you, Latika. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank FITIS for giving us this opportunity to talk about our strategy in developing Sri Lanka and how the digital transformation of Sri Lanka is going to take place. As Jayanta mentioned, Jayanta was actually the chairman of ICT agency before I took over, and we were all appointed to the ICTA about 1 year and 3 months ago. And the first thing that we did was we developed a very comprehensive strategy to carry out this digital transformation process in consultation with all the stakeholders, the industry associations, the government, the citizens, and so on. And then we restructured the ICTA itself to deliver this strategy. So this strategy has 4 main pillars: digital government, digital economy, digital laws and policies, and digital services. And there is another area, digital technology, that cuts across all these verticals that I mentioned. So talking about digital government a little bit. So digital government, again, we divided that into 3 main areas: citizen-centric areas. We want to deliver, this is the vision of the government, vision of HE the President, to deliver government services to citizens so that they are not troubled in a convenient manner. The second area is to improve the ease of doing business. So government wants to be, we want to transform the government so that the government is business friendly. The third area is the government itself is the whole of government, how to improve the efficiency, reduce wastage, increase the revenue, increase the transparency, the accountability of the government. So we know that we have a window of about 3 years, and we have not, if we say that we are going to transform everything within next couple of months, that is going to be not true. So we have selected again key institutions that we want to transform, high impact institutions that we want to transform initially. So they are like education, health, welfare, and so on in the digital government area, company registry, National Intellectual Property Office, customs, ports are in the digital economy area. And then this whole thing is going to be built on a foundational framework. So this framework consists of many layers. The lowest is the Lanka Government Network, then Lanka Government Cloud, and then on top of that, Sri Lanka Unique Digital ID Framework, right? And this is the one that is going to support all these applications, whatever, whether it is healthcare application, education application, and all these will be built on this platform. And we will also build a national data exchange, which will have it will be open standards, common set of protocols. While we are developing these applications, we also want others, private sector, to develop applications. We want to have public-private partnerships. We want to have other innovators to develop the applications so that we can fast-track this entire process. So this is how the entire digital government is set up. Then digital economy part is, I know that I'm taking, but this is an important area. I think this has to be told. So digital economy has 3 main areas again: industry expansion and enhancement, destination promotion to attract foreign direct investment, and startup ecosystem development, right? And these will be built again on capacity building, technology diffusion, and regional clusters. I think now we have expanded this. Jayanta will talk more on this, technology parks, right? So that is how the digital economy, and we have targets to achieve $3 billion within a period of 3 years in terms of exports, to have a workforce of about 300,000 and about 1,000 tech startups and 500 non-tech startups. And then in terms of digital policy and laws, we are working on several acts and amendments to regulations, and one of the main ones is Data Protection Act, and it is almost ready, and it will be enacted by, so we have now deliberations now, it will be enacted in May of this year. And there are many regulations that are needed to be amended, so Digital Policy and Law Division are handling that. Then also the digital services part is focusing on providing the necessary consultancy and maintenance of management of information systems for the government. So that is in a nutshell what we are planning to do. So a lot of work to be done, and a lot of work has also already been done. Thank you.
Thank you, Lalit. I think, yes, there's a lot. What you mentioned just now is extremely comprehensive. Clearly, the government has thought through, all the different areas that need support in a very holistic manner. And I think I will come back to each one of those points a little later in my questions. Jayanta, one of the big initiatives I do know that the government is looking at are the tech parks. What can you tell us about the tech parks? What is the vision? And most importantly, clearly you would like to attract multinational companies to come to Sri Lanka. Personally, I've been to Sri Lanka several times over the past couple of years, and I believe it. In many ways, it's the best kept secret, right? It is a fabulous country. The infrastructure is great. If the telecom infrastructure is improved, you have great talent. So what is the grand vision for the tech parks?
Yes, we decided to have these clusters, 5 clusters, as a policy of ICTA about 1 year ago, as Professor Gamage told you. But then, as a policy of the government, one of the key things that in the technology ministry, under the technology ministry, was to establish these tech parks. Now, we wanted to do these tech parks in a very different way. So we call them hybrid tech parks. Now, these are not IT parks. And we selected some of the fantastic areas in Sri Lanka. Just to name Kandy, Nuwara, Galle, and Kurunegala. The 5th is yet to be selected. We prefer a C, but we have not been able to obtain 100 acres. So these tech parks obviously would have different objectives. So we have different plans for them. Firstly, for allowing the local industry, the local startups, the local SMEs to have access and to have this availability inside the tech parks. Obviously, the other thing is to attract FDI, to invite some of the best companies in the world to come and set up their some of their development centers in these tech parks. These tech parks are going to be very, very unique. Having traveled around the world, visiting so many tech parks, we have learned a lot, and this is going to be a real fun and work environment. Just to give you one example, the Kandy Tech Park, we have considered the accessibility, the ease of reaching the tech parks. So our new roads from Colombo to Kandy, this highway is coming up. It's built almost sort of halfway to Kurunegala. Then we have 2 landing stations, landing runways at Kandy. We are developing now from Katunayaka directly to come to Kandy. We have the famous Digana Golf Course, which will attract a lot of our friends. We have the Pallekele Kandy Cricket Stadium. We have already done 500 homestay. So these are all facilities. And also we have the beautiful Victoria Lake around the lake park, around the tech park, sorry. So we will be attracting a lot of people into these areas. Imagine someone coming from abroad, coming to our Colombo airport, directly going to the tech park, playing a golf game, coming to the tech park, and the owners, the managers, the workers, all together, all of them working in one environment. This is a fabulous environment. So we also have planned a lot of other areas like health, entertainment, superb technical facilities like 5G, fiber optic. So this will be one of the best tech parks in the world. Every location has been selected after great thought. So we hope, we have already started discussions with the big companies, and the response has been extremely good. So we want to, the other thing is, of course, education, access to education, access to schools, and access to universities. So there are private universities coming up already around the tech parks. There are established government universities, which we are going to have a lot of R&D facilities, a lot of innovation centers. So it's going to be a huge transformation in this field. And mind you, please understand, it is not ICT. It is going to be technology. So there may be very, very a large companies in agriculture, in health, in education. All these would be inside the tech park. So we are hoping to commence these tech parks end of this year. The Galle and the Kandy, we have already started. We have acquired the land within these 3 months, and things are going according to our plans at the moment.
Definitely, being a golfer, I'm going to be probably one of the first Jayanta to come in and play at that course. The holistic, again, what I like is the holistic way you have thought through in terms of looking at what the different stakeholders would like. And for a country like Sri Lanka, where agri-tech, agriculture is a very important part of the economy, to be able to support this critical part of the economy is really a very, very good and I think progressive. Lalit, coming back to you, one of the concerns, I've been reading is the brain drain, right? India faced this many years ago, 20 years ago. Most people got on a flight and left for the US. And then we had, because of the infrastructure getting better, the economy getting better, the policies getting better, there were people all coming back to India. Personally, I lived and worked in the US and came back to India because it was, the opportunities presented itself. So what do you see, what are some of the concerns you have about brain drain? What are some of the initiatives being done to attract people to come back to Sri Lanka?
Okay, I have a different view about this brain drain. I think it's brain mobility around the world, right? We want to have people go out and get experience, as you just mentioned. People who have returned to India, they have contributed, I think, immensely to the economy. So we also want people to go out and have that exposure and come back to Sri Lanka. We want people to go out and earn foreign exchange for us, which is also one of our largest export earners. We want quality brains to go out, trained brains to go out and earn foreign exchange. We want our brains to people to go out and bring investments, expand our network, expand the visibility of Sri Lanka, right? So having said that, we also need to have people. So I think the important thing is to train, educate enough people. I think that is because although we say we have many resources, I think our main resource is the human resource. So enhancing, sharpening this human resource is the key to any development. And also, one thing that we want, sorry? Yeah, you want to say something? Yeah.
I was going to mention that skill development is critical, right? So
yeah,
if the focus is on skill development and getting, continuous supply of talent, then it doesn't matter if people are leaving the country.
Exactly.
So what is the
and also we need to create the environment, as I said, brain mobility, to have people, they have talent, have skills from anywhere in the world. But having said that, I want to tell you, we have a very comprehensive education reforms plan, right, which looks at the primary education, secondary education, tertiary and vocational education, higher education, continuing education. It's a very comprehensive education plan. And in that education plan, if you look at traditionally, the education system had been designed to be exclusive, right? Exclusive after O levels. I think O levels is after 10 years of education. We want to leave people out, filter people out. After A levels, that is advanced level, 12 years of education, leave people out to fit into a number of seats that are available in the universities. I think this is completely wrong. What we want to do is to look at this completely differently and develop an inclusive education system where no one is left behind. So if you want to leave after O levels and do a foundation program and do a job and want to come back and do a degree, we want to develop a pathway for that. So we want to develop various multiple pathways for people to acquire the skills that they require. And there are a number of initiatives to train and educate people. Now we have got the non-state sector. So since the government sector, the government sector is although I'm in the government education system is a bit of a heavy inertial system to move, we have got the private sector to participate in this, and we have been very successful in getting people, professionals trained and educated through the private sector. And what the government has come up with is an interest-free loan scheme for students to take these loans, educate themselves, and we have seen a tremendous change in the numbers that are participating in the non-state sector to acquire the current skills. Again, when you create this environment, earlier the issue was because it was highly competitive, people were only focusing on education, passing exams. They never thought of developing other life skills. But when things are opened up, when they know that there are opportunities for them to do whatever that they do, and it doesn't matter even if you make a mistake early on in the life, you can still come back to education and system and do whatever that you want to do. People are more relaxed, parents are more relaxed. Now we see that people are developing more soft skills, communication skills, problem solving skills, critical thinking skills, ability to integrate with people, ability to work with teams. These are very essential life skills that are necessary. So while giving the right kind of education subject matter, we are also developing these skills, and we are also teaching students how to learn, how to unlearn what you have learned and relearn. So acquiring current skills is also very critical, because when I was in the university, I learned Pascal programming, right? Now it is not very relevant, but can I do today's programming? Yes, because I have learned how to learn, right? So that is the critical thing, and what the right skills that are needed for today's environment is also necessary. So that is why we are working with industry associations and other bodies to train the workforce that is required for today's needs.
No, I think Lalit, you're spot on, because this is for developing countries like ours. We have a great human capital available, young human capital available, and training them in multidisciplinary skills is extremely important, because unlike our generation, I think things are changing at such a rapid pace that you need to give them train them in critical thinking skills most importantly. So it's wonderful to see what Sri Lanka is doing in terms of getting the youngsters to be able to do these courses, right? Interest-free loans, etc., is just the way to kind of support and promote. Jayanta, coming back to you, I think again, having worked in the startup ecosystem across close to 20 developing markets, I know that Sri Lanka, literally in 2 years, I've seen how well some of the startups that I've worked with are doing. But one area which is, I think, extremely critical is promoting of investments into startups, right? Both locally and also globally, creating an environment for investors to come in, and also helping them, invest in the startups and take their money out. The concern is that if we come in, for investors, how do we take the money out? So what are the different structures that you are looking at implementing in terms of promoting this investment? And I'm focusing on startups. I know there are other activities like your ports and tech parks, etc. But the startups is a very unique field. Like in India alone, we had $15 billion in investment, VC investment, right? That's the kind of investment one would hope that Sri Lanka gets over the next few years. But the structure is extremely important. The policies are extremely important.
Yes, the startups, of course, we have identified startup as one of our key layers. It's really important, especially in countries like ours, I feel. The SMEs, the startups that we have to help them. So we have been actually really good as far as startups are concerned. But of course, as you rightly said, there are many startups who the sustainability has been a problem for various reasons, and we have identified this. Just to mention, ICTA is going to have a special startup facility inside ICTA. We are moving on to a new premises. We have dedicated a floor for startups. So we would be doing a hand-holding, giving support, and also not only on the technical side, but on the business side. So we will groom them, not only at ICTA, but I will explain a little bit later. Then people who have sort of matured from here would be able to go into another area where we have at the Lotus Tower, you may have heard about it. We have dedicated one floor for startups. So there they will be able to demonstrate, showcase their startups while they are working. And from there, we want them to come to our tech parks. And we may even have a special tech park for startups. So we are concentrating on this in a very big way because we feel startups is one of the key areas in developing, especially, I would say, the ICT industry. But of course, we are also planning to support non-IT, non-ICT areas, also startups. So that also has been taken over by ICTA. Out of the 1,000 startups we are planning, 700 is going to be IT related and 300 non-IT. So we are concentrating a lot on startups, and we are talking to major banks, not only loans, to help them, and we are going to have some funds available to help them. And in the startup, in the tech parks, we are going to have very subsidized rates for startups. So we are going to encourage startups, and we feel that it is one of the key and very important areas in our plan.
Thank you, Jayanta. Lalit, early on you mentioned about the various, I would say, structures that you have, including you discussed about the taxation, structures that are going to be there for foreign investment. A key part of it is, from what I understand, is that the funds being allowed to repatriate their funds, the foreign investment funds, and also the taxation at the fund level. What are some of the changes planned for the exchange control regulation for repatriation?
So let me come back to that question. I want to tell a little bit about the initiatives that we have for startup. ICTA has been in the forefront of promoting startup. So we have a program called Spiralation, which has been very successful in supporting startups, not just in Colombo, but in the various parts of the region, in Sri Lanka as well, various regions in Sri Lanka. And also we have a program to promote and popularize startups and also onboard startup companies and develop entrepreneurship called Startup SL. I'm very happy to say that since we started this, we have already surpassed the 450 mark. So people are now onboarding, and this is really a drive because we even provide funds for some of these startups. And simultaneously, I want to come to this question that you asked. There are various funds that are set up, Lanka Angel Network, Lanka Angel Fund, so various private sector funds that are established to fund startups. But in addition to this, we have also teamed up with Startup Genome, which is a global body, to get their assistance to provide consultancy. And also we have, together with PricewaterhouseCoopers, we have come up with a very comprehensive report which has identified 29 impediments, including some of the things that you just mentioned. And we are addressing all these one by one. So funding is a major issue, right? So one thing is evaluation of startups. One area that we are handling is evaluation of startup. It has been done in a very traditional way. You need to have collaterals to get funding and so on. But we have now developed a different credit score system which has been accepted by the banks to provide funds. So let me come to this, the issue that you were talking about. Yes, so there is no impediment in bringing in funds and investing. Obviously there are controls in terms of taking funds out. I'm not saying that funds cannot be taken out, funds can be taken out, right? And also you need to have structures established in such a way that this is allowed. So one thing is the partnership registration, which is now being done. And what we want to do is, now HE has appointed what is known as a deregulation commission, right, which is looking at all the regulations and the laws that are impeding the development of this country. So we have identified, in fact our list is already given, and we have a meeting tomorrow to discuss these impediments and what laws can be changed to facilitate this. But even to fast track this, what we want to do is, within the parks, we've been talking with the secretary, Mr. Jayantha, to have a different kind of regulatory environment, right, for the companies that are established and grow within these technology parks. We'll have a different set of rules, different regulatory environment, so that tax benefits and also this repatriation of funds can be provided. So these are the mechanisms that we are looking at in order to address some of these impediments that we have identified already.
I think that's really, really good to hear, because this is an exciting time. Again, the startups I've worked with are looking to go global. So the support in terms of for growth in terms of investment is very, very important. Jayantha, an important point that I'd like to ask you is, again, startups are constantly struggling to find customers. It is a chicken and egg problem, right? The money comes in when investors look at growth, but startups are looking at customers, and it is difficult for them to find customers internally in Sri Lanka, because the adoption of digital transformation by Sri Lankan companies is still slow, right? Because I know this is a challenge even in India. So most of the Indian startups look at leaving the country and going to the US in terms of looking at clients. I'm working very actively with both the government in India and the Indian corporates to adopt the solutions being provided by startups. What are your thoughts about the government? I think earlier on Lalit had also mentioned, but the government engaging with these startups, giving them contracts, giving them a platform in terms of showcasing their technology. Any thoughts on that?
As you said, it's completely correct to say that getting the market or marketing has been a major drawback. We are also working, mind you, with SLASCOM and FITIS and other organizations. They are also very keen to help us and also the country on the startups. They do also have a policy regarding startups, and we have been in constant dialogue with them, working closely with the private organizations too. Now, startups, as you rightly said, Sri Lanka has a very, very small market. But we are trying our very best to give some type of preference to the Sri Lankan companies to come out with this, because our unique ID, which is we are hoping to come end of this year, we are having about 50 to 75 LOBs, line of business areas, that we are planning to give the Sri Lankan companies, and there also we will give the startups also a preference. So startups ecosystem everywhere in the world has faced this challenge, I know. But in our case, we are trying, as Professor Gamage said, we have already helped them in establishing themselves, giving them the confidence and giving them a line of credit, an easy path to them. So in the marketing sector, we are also trying to work with a lot of foreign embassies that we are having. Every ambassador that is going out of this country is being trained by us now, or whatever the name you say. We are having a 2-day program. To all this time, it was mainly on our traditional exports. So most of these ambassadors were not aware of the ICT sector. I know how India handled it. Some of your ambassadors know better IT than the normal IT guys. So they talk to them. Just like that, we are using all as a front end, all these some of these embassies to work on the IT on the ICT area. So these are some of the things that we have done, and also we are sort of we are encouraging them to sort of when we get the foreign companies also to work with them closely. I think because traditionally our part of the world, this has been a major problem. Whenever we want to bring in education, universities, there has been a resistance. So gradually now it is been, we have managed to sort of take this out of, to show them that the benefits are much more than what the things that they talk. Then bringing some of the consultants to Sri Lanka, foreign consultants, to help them. This is also very important, so that, we are trying to open up also on this angle so that they could work closely with some of these big boys. That's how they get the connections. I've seen this in India very much. So we hope that startups and also psychologically, we are moving into that direction, and these boys and young girls and boys are getting confidence that ICTA is supporting them and the ministry as a whole. So we hope that startups would be an area that would help us in actually strengthening the industry.
If I may also add,
Please go ahead, Lalit.
yes, I think as Jayanta very correctly pointed out, promotion of startups is an essential part, and we have already partnered with, there is a EU Sri Lanka Innovation Partnership that we have created, and the EU is through the network, they have connected up with the European startup ecosystem with the Sri Lanka startup ecosystem. So that has given the exposure that our startup ecosystem necessary, and also country specific ones. Now next week we will be signing with Germany with their startup ecosystem to expose and to give that visibility to our startups. And also one thing that you mentioned, how do we support in terms of business, as again Jayanta touched on, these large projects that ICTA is planning to create, these large line of business solution, whether it is healthcare or education or whatever, and we will be giving preference to bidders who have formed consortia with startup companies, right? So there will be an evaluation system that gives preference to people who have partnered with startup companies.
Wonderful. I think that's a really, really excellent idea in terms of engaging with the various ambassadors from different countries in terms of exposing them to what the island has to offer in terms of the technical, the technology startups that are there. My last questions to both you and Jayanta and Lalit is about the role of women and women leaders, right, in Sri Lanka from a policy perspective, because I think it's very important in a digitally inclusive country, that there are enough women leaders who are out there to drive change, and also in terms of ensuring that women are not left behind in terms of digital literacy. What are some of the things that are being done at the policy level to help and promote this?
If can I add? Yeah. Traditionally, you may be, or a lot of people will be surprised, that women has been given an equal opportunity in Sri Lanka, right? In every aspect, whether in politics or, some of the doctors, we have a huge number of female doctors here. And even in the IT sector, we are now driving a program to encourage women. But of course, if you take my company, which I work, we have about 37% women. So that's a high number. But there are some natural constraints, to be very honest, to say, right, when women are employed in our part of the world because of, our social way of living, like night working, But to tell you, in the parks, we are bringing legal framework where women could work in the night, and we will be giving them full security and encouraging them, the companies, because at the moment there is a rule to say that after 10 women cannot work in any of these companies. So we are going to take it out from the parks initially. So we are encouraging them. We are having some, even the private sector organizations are encouraging women to come into our field. If you take the lawyers, you will be surprised. Most of the, a lot of lawyers, we have women lawyers better, we feel that they can argue better, I suppose. So, yeah. So women have, they have been given a sort of, we have not had any things to impede or to discourage them using. But now it's a matter of encouraging them more to join. So I personally feel Sri Lanka as a country has been supporting them, and especially in the IT sector, there are some major companies who are trying their very best to have at least 30% of women by next year. So that's a very good move, and we are supporting, and we will be supporting as the ministry, as a policy of the government. We will be supporting women entrepreneurs as well as to join, especially in the technology sector.
Wonderful.
Great, yes. So let me tell you my experience about this. I also run the largest non-state higher education institute in Sri Lanka, and one of our largest faculties is the computing faculty, and we produce actually the most of the IT professionals that are working in this country. So when you really look at in terms of gender balance who are coming into our programs, it is almost 50%, maybe 46 to 54 or 48 to depending on the year, right? But one thing that we see is they take on jobs, but when they get married and later on in their life, they tend to leave jobs. That is because the pressure coming from the family and the cultural pressure. And as Jayanta very correctly pointed out, I think the main issue is the flexibility. So what we want to do is promote flexible working hours, and obviously one thing one positive thing that has come out of this pandemic is working from home. Now this is the time for us to promote all those women professionals to come out and contribute towards the economic development, and we have partnered with the Ministry of Women and Child Development Affairs, and also there is a special Women Chamber of ICT. We are working with Industry Association, and there is SLASCOM has also a branch to promote women entrepreneurs. So we are combining all these efforts to get more and more women to participate in this whole exercise.
Thank you, Jayanta, and thank you, Lalit, for all of you watching this. I think Sri Lanka is really a very, very exciting place to be over the next decade. I think the policies that have been thought through very holistically for all sectors, not just from a technology, tech perspective, but for all parts of the economy, I think is extremely exciting. The education policy that is in place, that is being thought through, and more importantly, ensuring that every citizen in Sri Lanka is going to be a part of this next wave of digital inclusion is what I am personally very excited to hear. Thank you, Lalit. Thank you, Jayanta. And I think on behalf of FITIS and my co-chair Zulfa, we are very appreciative of you being here with us today.
Thank you, Latifa.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Latif.
FITIS, and thank you all.
Yeah.